Colombia is preparing one of the largest investment transport portfolios in history, about $90 billion in national transport projects for the next decade. Bogota's 2026 budget assigns around $2.6 billion to mobility and around $670 million to Urban Development Institute alone. These figures show how important is infrastructure of transport in public investment.
And yet the results do not match the scale of spending. We keep building roads, corridors, terminals, and systems, but congestion remains a part of public life. Motorcyclists now account for around 63% of fatalities and are involved in roughly 3 out of 4 fatal crashes. Public transport loses users, motorcycles multiply. Road deaths reached a new historic high in Colombia in 2025 with 8,697 people. This is the system we inherited, a way of transport planning around speed, capacity, and vehicle flow. This was designed for another century, and often for cities very different from ours. The problem is not that we have invested too little. The problem is that we have invested too much, guided by the wrong question.
The future of transport research cannot be limited to moving more vehicles faster. It must ask how transport shapes access, dignity, safety, care, climate, and urban life in general.
The first challenge is the connection between congestion and climate. In cities like Bogota, congestion wastes time, productivity, and energy, but it's also a symptom of a deeper urban failure. Long distance, weak land use integration, and strict designs to absorb more traffic instead of reducing the need to travel. At the same time, transport remains one of the hardest sectors to decarbonize. In 2024, it generated around 8.4 gigatons of carbon related emissions, almost double its 1990 level. The climate transition will not be resolved only by electrifying cars in wealthy cities. It will be decided in cities that are still building their mobility future.
The second challenge is road safety. Road traffic injuries kill about 1.19 million people every year worldwide, and the burden falls mainly on low income and middle income countries. In Colombia, the crisis has a very specific vehicle motorcycles. In the global south, motorcycles are not mainly leisure vehicles. They are work tools, survival assets, and substitutes for the unreliable public transport. They save time, but they also expose people to extreme danger.
The third challenge is the distinction between informal transport, public transport, and modal choice. People do not always choose to have motor taxis, vans, or informal buses because they want to. They choose it because formal transport is slow, expensive, unsafe, or absent. In Bogota, the poorest populations make fewer than 1.5 trips per day, and their transport expenses exceed their 20% household income. Informal transport is not just a lack of order, it's when institutions arrive late, arrive underfunded, or not at all.
The fourth challenge is land use and care. Transport systems were built around an imaginary commuter who leaves home in the morning and returns in the evening. Yet reality is much more complex than that. People take children to school, take elderly people to medical appointments, buy food, care for others, and make several trips in one single chain. These trips are disproportionately made by women, yet they remain undercounted for in surveys, models, and budgets. At the same time, cities keep expanding onto the periphery, where housing is cheaper but access is more expensive due to high transport costs. The result is a hidden geography tax paid for by those with the least money and the longest journey. The fifth challenge is governance and motonormativity. Transport decisions are still too often separated from land use, public health, social policy, climate policy, and care. Institutions evaluate projects through time savings, throughput, and capacity, even when those projects depend exclusion and danger. Motonormativity helps to explain why this continues. The cost of motorized mobility, deaths, noise, emissions, land consumption, and fear, they are treated like normal features in urban life rather than a political choice. That is how a system can fail socially while still appearing technically rational.
If nothing changes, cities will keep spending billions while reproducing the same failures. Congestion will expand with urban sprawl. Public transport will fall deeper into financial crisis. Informal systems will become permanent substitutes for absent public services. Motorcycles will continue growing as the easiest individual escape from collective transport failure.
Road deaths will remain incredibly high, especially amongst young people. In countries with falling fertility, like Colombia, losing thousands of young people every year means losing workers, caregivers, students, and community leaders at the same time.
Air mobility will remain invisible. Women will continue adapting their lives to systems that not are designed for them. Low-income households will continue moving to the edge of the city, where rent is cheaper, but the access to opportunity is expensive.
And if research does not change, it will help reproduce the problem. Research that measures mobility without accessibility will keep designing systems that move vehicles instead of connect people. Also, research that values time savings before safety, equity, and care will keep making the wrong projects look efficient. Our transformation pathway begins with space. Redistributing space is redistributing power. A car lane is space that cannot be used as a bus lane, a cycling lane, a sidewalk, trees, or even public life. Future research must account for the full cost of car oriented design pollution, heat, road danger, exclusion, and the loss of urban space.
Second, transport research must erase those boundaries between modes. A real mobility system is not an isolated system. A global south trip may include walking, BRT lines, bus fitting, and another walk. Freight and logistics also share the same street. We need models that understand the complete trip chain, including informal mobility, care trips, walking, and urban distribution.
Third, equity must become the starting point. We cannot evaluate a transport system without asking who is excluded by it. The key question is not only how fast the system moves, but who it connects, at what cost, with what level of safety, and with what dignity.
Fourth, research must articulate knowledge instead of accumulating isolated methods. The most urgent transport questions do not fit one discipline. Why do people abandon public transport? How can a station feel safe for women at night? How can speed management save lives without blaming vulnerable users? These questions require engineers, psychologists, economists, sociologists, public health researchers, and communities working together.
Fifth, the Global South must become a producer of transport theory. The financial fragility of public transport, the motorcycle boom, the invisibility of care, the growth of informal systems, and the speed of urban expansion are not peripheral topics. They are the defining challenges of 21st century urban mobility. Bogota, Lagos, Nairobi, and Sao Paulo should not be treated only as case studies. They are places where the future of transport research is already.
We begin with a paradox. We invest billions of dollars in transport infrastructure, but more infrastructure does not automatically produce better mobility. It can reproduce congestion, it can deepen inequality, it can make streets more dangerous, it can move vehicles while leaving people behind. So, this manifesto is a commitment.
So, this manifesto is a commitment. We commit to studying transport as a system of life, not only as a system of movement. We commit to measuring accessibility, not only speed.
We commit to making visible the people who were left outside the model women, children, older adults, informal workers, low income commuters, pedestrians, cyclists, motorcyclists, and care workers.
We commit to treating safety as a responsibility of the system, not placed as a burden to the most vulnerable users. We commit to building research that is interdisciplinary, ethically grounded, and useful for policy.
For too long, transport research has moved from north to south as if the global south were only a recipient of methods, standards, and practices. But the future of urban mobility is already being shaped in the south, in its congestion, its informal systems, its motorcycle dependencies, its public transport deficits, and its struggles for access.
The question is not whether we will build more infrastructure. We will.
The real question is if we build it with the same imagination that produced this crisis, or whether transport research will finally help us design cities where mobility means safety, dignity, access, and shared urban life.
That is the future of transport research we stand for.